Starfinder has been around for 3 years, and this particular faction hasn't received a ton of coverage yet in Starfinder. But here is what we know about the Knights of Golarion. Let's get into it. The Knights of Golarion are a military organization, and they have very strong ties when it comes to the Pact Worlds. The Church of Iomedae in particular for this group, as well as the missing children of Golarion. The Knights of Golarion are basically space paladins. They are holy rollers who seek to deliver justice for all. The Knights go around spreading their message of justice and righteousness as they have learned it from their goddess, Iomedae. The Knights of Golarion, they mix their military hierarchy with that of errant lords and a feudal structure. And those who rise in the ranks to become a Knight's Lieutenant or higher, they will actually be tasked with going out into society, going out into the public or space. It's kind of big. They are tasked with finding an injustice and then having to correct this injustice while still following the tenets of Iomedae. Now, aside from sending someone out into space and hoping they return after completing some heroic deed or correcting some colossal injustice, for lack of a better word, this is not unlike the Stewards, except for the fact that the Stewards, they go about this entirely different and they respect the laws in which jurisdictions they operate. If they go to a planet or they go to a different society, they respect the laws that they operate in. The Knights of Golarion do not care about the laws of the places that they visit. All they care about is that they are following the tenets of Iomedae. To be a knight, the requirement that you are a follower of Iomedae is not necessary. It's not something you have to do. Most of them will, though. All knights will take a sacred vow to uphold the tenets of the Code of the Inheritor. This is a 10-part oath, and it basically outlines that you will be courageous, you will respect your prisoners and not torture them, you will act with honor, and you will have temperance in action. I know Iomedae is great and all, but if we could just pause for 2 seconds. If you're enjoying the video today, please let me know by hitting the thumbs up, and if you want to get more like this from me, then hit the subscribe button with the bell notification. Now, back to me telling you how great Iomedae is. To the Knights, Iomedae is a representation of humanity. To them, she is seen as a patron deity. They are not, however, specifically related to the Church of Iomedae. They consider themselves a very separate organization, and they are very clear that while they do respect and revere Iomedae, they are not a militia of Iomedae. In modern-day Starfinder, Iomedae is worshipped mostly by humans. However, she does have some Vesk and Kasatha following as well. To them, they find that the Code of Honor really speaks to them when it comes to battle. Some hallmarks of somebody who is a follower of Iomedae, they will be helpful, like genuinely. They actually want to help you. And they are not prideful, so if they require assistance, they are not above accepting that help. Many of her followers also tend to be very hard workers and very respectful workers. And the followers that do go into battle on a somewhat consistent basis, looking at you, Vesk, those that do follow her will tend to carry her hallmark symbol of a longsword into combat. When it comes to Iomedae and her priests, they will go out and try to correct the world or help people, but they are not above going out and using their swords and using force if the situation calls for it. It would not be the first thing that they would do, probably the last, but if it comes down to it, they absolutely will use force. Iomedae is a fantastic fighter. She knows what she's doing in battle. She is also benevolent when she needs to be. Many of the other gods, many of the other deities, they absolutely respect Iomedae. So that should say a lot. Iomedae expects her mortal followers to be courteous, and in their dealings to get basically the same. She doesn't want to see any unequal dealings between her followers. Abadar is not okay with this. Iomedae expects justice for everyone, and she expects her followers to be honorable and respectful. She teaches that it's better to convince those who would walk the path of evil to lay down their weapons and convert. If the evildoers refuse to come over to the light side, because the dark side has better cookies, she commissions her followers to go out into space, wage the endless war until the evildoers have been purged from history. So there's that. Iomedae's followers, when they go out into space, wherever they visit, wherever they go, be it a moon, an asteroid, planets, there's lots of planets in Starfinder. Her temples are always erected, but they always look like older style cathedrals. An Iomedae temple will typically have a large fountain somewhere nearby. There will be lots of arches, so think your Gothic style cathedrals, but they will not be dark. They will look more like white marble. And although these buildings look like a classic monastery or a classic temple, they do very much, in fact, have modern luxuries and the modern amenities. Just because you're fighting for justice doesn't mean you have to give up some luxuries or some comforts. Now, where did Iomedae come from? She was born as a mortal on Golarion, thousands of years before the Gap. She was able to ascend to godhood by touching the Starstone and passing the tests. And once the civilizations of Golarion were able to leave their planet and go into space, they took Iomedae with them. Now, because Golarion has disappeared post-Gap, this has made her significance even more important to those that follow her. Because your birth planet is kind of missing, and so is Rovagug. Humanity has kind of adopted Iomedae as their goddess or their spiritual representation. Iomedae was revered because she was a just knight. She was an honorable warrior. She personifies glory, honor, justice, strength, and valor, all of which are noble traits. The Knights of Golarion are usually perceived as heroes. It's not often that you will find someone who is disrespectful or distrustful of the Knights of Golarion. This attitude has also got them into trouble with the Stewards more than a few times. These Stewards do respect the laws, but they do not follow Iomedae's tenets. And because Knights of Golarion are pretty black and white about evil, there's just no room for nuance with them. The Stewards do work with the Knights, but they more or less try to point them in the direction that they need to go. A corpse fleet attack, an alien invasion, attacking the swarm, anything to defend the Pact World systems that don't rely on politics, because that is just not something that the Knights do. When they do go out to investigate these threats or track down the evildoers, they will typically do so in their giant cathedral ships. These are churches in space, and they are bases of operations for the Knights. Very few other faiths or religions have a navy that's even comparable to what the Knights have. They build their ships to invoke a sense of righteousness and purity. They look like they're made out of marble. They're not. They're made out of typical space material that's pretty tough, very tough, but they look like cathedrals in space. They have the stained glass windows. It's just their thing. The Inheritor Works Cathedral ship is absolutely massive. These ships are the pride of the Iomedaean Navy. They are able to carry 16 Brightsword Fighters, not to mention all the guns outfitted on the outside of the ship and all of the armory and equipment on the inside of the ship. These things are extremely formidable. A Brightsword is a fighter-style ship. The main weapon of the Brightsword is a plasma cannon, and it is attached to a housing that kind of looks like a sword that's on the front of the ship. I don't know if you could actually use it to ram. If you reinforce it, you probably could. The style and design of the ship is meant to invoke fear when the enemies see it, because they do kind of look a little scary. The Iomedaean Navy is divided up into 11 fleets. That's how many there are. There's a lot. These fleets are sometimes called acts. 7 of these fleets are designed for general engagement, your typical combat fleets. There's also 2 fleets that are designed for ground assault. They will drop their troops. They have the vehicles to handle landing on a planet. You don't want to see these guys show up on your door. The remaining 2 fleets are designed for scouting and exploration, because you still need to know where to go in space. The forces of Iomedae have sometimes found themselves in conflict with the Hell Knights. I've done a video on them up here, so you can check that one out after this one. The Hell Knights are also trying to bring about order to the rest of the universe. However, the way they go about doing it is the exact opposite of how the Knights are doing it. These 2 groups have not actively gone to war. I'm sure it's not far off, but they have traded shots. So if you're looking to use them in your stories, there's a good way you can integrate them. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about the factions in Starfinder, check the playlist out on your screen now. Thank you so much to all of my patrons. Thank you for the support for me and the channel. My name's Nathaniel. This has been the Maple Table. Thanks for stopping by, everyone.